The scanner can be used to scan almost anything: buildings, beasts, plants, water, and so on. It will try its best to break down the information it has received and display it on the screen for you, although this is not the goal of the expedition." Dell halted his speech, heaving a sigh before resuming. His irritation was starting to get the best of him. "What you students need to do is look for things on the planet which have never been scanned before, and this includes beasts. In your teams, each newly scanned object will earn you points. If the item has been scanned before, you will receive no points. Now for the most crucial part. There is quite a range on these scanners. Before engaging in combat, it will scan every beast that is within your vision. The most useful thing about these scanners is that, even if they have never seen a beast before, it will be able to tell you what level the beast is at." After the explanation with the scanners was over, Dell went on to tell them how the expedition would work between the classes. Each class, together with their homeroom teacher, would be sent off to a certain area. When they reached their assigned space, the class would stay there for a while, allowing every one of the students to scan the area thoroughly. If they were to run into a beast with a tier higher than intermediate, they were advised to fall back and tell the teacher immediately. The homeroom teacher would then inform the generals, who would come to their aid as soon as possible. In total, there were 10 classes. Hence, Faye and Leo would stay in the center of these classes so they could respond to each of their calls of distress as quickly as they could. As soon as Dell's lecture was finished, the groups began making their final preparations. While Quinn was looking around, he noticed that Logan was already tinkering around with the scanner, no doubt making adjustments to the scanner's system. It wouldn't surprise Quinn if Logan was able to change the readings to allow his team to get the top score. All of a sudden, he felt a soft touch on his shoulder, interrupting his observations. "Hey, do you need one of these if we're going outside?" Fex said as he waved a strange object in front of Quinn. It looked like a flask made out of silver. The only difference was that, on the facade of the flask, a skull that had 2 sharp fangs on the upper jaw was displayed. It was a strange design for Quinn. Looking at it closely, Quinn realized that the design was utterly similar to the one that the book had, the one that had given him his powers. "What's that?" Quinn asked, without really thinking about what he had just said. He was unsure whether this was common knowledge among the vampires or not. "This is a special flask that allows us to hold the blood inside. If you used a normal flask, the blood would spoil in a few days. However, this one is especially used within the circle of vampires to keep blood fresh. Well, that is, as long as it remained inside the flask. By the way, every vampire is given one," Fex explained. "If you're going to another planet with beasts as its main population, then it's best to bring one of these with you. We'll be gone for a week, and I don't want to be turning into a bloodsucker." After hearing those words, a specific memory came flooding back to Quinn's mind. It was related to the time when he did turn into a bloodsucker. Fex seemed to not rely on blood as much as Quinn. Perhaps it was because he was closer to the next evolution. But for Quinn, if he didn't receive blood within 2 days, he would turn into a bloodsucker. Thankfully, though, Quinn now had the blood bank. That, in a way, acted the same way as the flask. Still, even last time, Quinn had used up his blood bank in a fight, and eventually was starving for blood. On this occasion, there were others to rely on. Though it was unlikely that their group would be split again, there was always the chance. But if vampires were required to carry around such a flask, was the blood bank also a unique skill amongst the system, one that other vampires didn't have? It had saved him so many times in the past. If Quinn could, he would have tried leveling up as fast as he could, but after many battles, it still hadn't been done. "So, do you have a spare one of these?" Quinn asked as he eyed the flask. "Of course, that's why I came over. If you didn't have the basic ring, I didn't think you would have the flask either." Fex then pulled out a similarly styled flask from the inside of his shirt and handed it straight over to Quinn. After spending some time with Fex, Quinn really couldn't say that he was a bad guy. He did grow on him with time. "Maybe during this trip I can finally ask about his shadow powers," Fex thought. Yet for some reason, while contemplating the matter, he felt guilty. He didn't know why it was the case. Finally, Dell had begun to call each group into the portal. As usual, each member had to hold on to each other's shoulders as they passed through the portal. Quinn's group was called up, and Vorden took the role of being in front. "I'll go behind the pretty boy," Sia insisted as she grabbed onto Vorden's shoulders. Behind her was Layla, and then Quinn, Fex, and Peter at the back. The group took a step forward as they prepared for what was to come in their orange portal expedition. While going through the portal, the group made sure to hold on to the person in front of them tightly. Last time it wouldn't have been so much of a big deal if they were to disconnect and let go. Although this might have caused them to split up, they were guaranteed to teleport somewhere safe in the shelter, but this time was different. Shelters were often incomplete, and sometimes not all of the spawn areas had been marked yet, so they could be chucked deep into beast territory and be there on their own. The fear could be felt in Sia's shoulders as Layla gripped on tightly, while Sia slid down her hands towards a certain place on Vorden's body. If they weren't in the middle of being warped, he would have turned around and pushed her, but Vorden wasn't that cruel, and Rayton wasn't complaining about what was happening one bit. Finally, the distorted space ended, and white light could be seen up ahead. When the white light vanished, a bright blinding light flashed in their eyes. Finally, when their eyesight slowly returned, the first thing they could see was green. Lots of green. More specifically, giant green trees. "Please step aside to allow the other students to arrive," a loud voice said as he pointed to his side. Just like last time, they had arrived in one of the areas that had been circled off. When they looked at the person commanding them, he hardly looked any older than them. Most likely a recruit who had just graduated and decided to stay with the army. The group went over to where the man pointed, and it seemed there were other groups of students standing by the side, waiting as well. Several soldiers were checking and coordinating with them, making sure they stayed in place and didn't wander off. "It's a lot better organized than our last trip," Layla said. "Of course it would be," Sia replied. "A green portal planet is practically safe. You would have to be a moron to be killed on one of those. But here, an orange planet can be a huge risk, so they have to be extra careful." Sia's words rubbed the group in the wrong way. They had been involved in the Dalki attack, which was devastating to them. They still had a deep scar in their minds. Although the students knew of what happened, they weren't informed which group of students had encountered the Dalki. Many of them thought it was only Ben's group that met them, and while standing off to the side, Quinn was able to take a good look at the shelter they were in. The planet and the shelter itself were vastly different from the one before. The first thing Quinn did was pop up his trusty umbrella to protect him from the sun, but this time it didn't do much to make him feel better.
Hi, Quinn here. Wondering what happens next? If you want to jump the queue and unleash all episodes, click on the link here and install the Pocket FM app.